everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram at Justin the Food Entrepreneurs or at Justin Bizzarro. Reach out us on there if you want to be on the show. Also, I know I've got a lot of people asking, and we are booking, but there is a link in every episode note, a Calendly link. I can't even say it. For everyone who wants to be on the show, you can use that. And once you sign up there, I will send you the rest of the information or whatever. And there's an email address in the bottom of the episode notes. If you wanted to email and you had questions before you're on the show, someone will get back to you there. I have Peter Elias back with us from Spain Wine Bar, amongst many other concepts. Can't even begin. I know last we talked, it was 2, and pre-talk now we're multiplying rapidly. So, Peter, how are you doing?
I'm good, Justin. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Last time we talked, just from the audience standpoint, you were ramping up for summertime in Ocean City, which is a beach town in Maryland, just so everyone knows. Very popular beach town amongst anyone in the mid-Atlantic area, for sure. It is a destination. It is our childhoods in some ways. I went to Myrtle Beach, but I did spend time in Ocean City also because friends went there. Talk to me about this year, the ramp up, a little bit about the restaurant, a little bit about you. Give everyone a little dosage. They can go back and listen to episode part 1 that we did back in May. So if anyone wants to listen, just go back to May. You can find the episode there. I'll give you guys the episode number in a little bit. Let me just pull it up. But in the meantime, Peter, tell us how you're doing.
Thank you so much, Justin. I'm doing great. It's been an amazing year. 2024 was very, very good to Spain Wine Bar. You know, my name's Peter Elias, obviously, as Justin mentioned, and Elias World Hospitality is my hospitality company, which manages these restaurants and these concepts. And I'm a city kid, you know, born and raised in Detroit, lived in Chicago for 11 years, lived in New York City for over a decade, and then in DC through COVID, from 2018 to COVID, and then moved out to Ocean City, Maryland in 2021. That was in February. And, you know, Ocean City, Maryland, like you said, we went from these big cities to a town that has, I think, 8,000 people that live here all year round. It's a fishing town. And then, of course, we have a major, we have, I think, over 8 million visitors over the summer months from big cities that are all pretty close to us, like Philly and New Jersey, New York, DC, Baltimore. And it is a beach town, but it's changed into a full season town. It's atypical for restaurants to open all year round, and Spain does exactly that. And actually a few other restaurants have started to do that now since, but most will make their money in the summertime and, do very well. And in those 4 to 5 months, and basically travel back to Florida and hang out there for, through maybe March, and then come back and start to reopen for usually St. Patty's Day. And then they may close a couple of days and then reopen back into, April, June months and go from there. So that's typically what you see here in Ocean City. This past year was overall a down year for Ocean City. I believe it was like 5 to 10% down. In Spain, we had some construction done last year, and we enclosed the space that was open to the elements. We are a rooftop restaurant on top of a hotel with beautiful views of the restaurant of the Atlantic, and of course the bay. There's a surrounding bay around us called Assateague, Island, and the bay next to it. Long story short, that helped us gave us a 40% increase in 2024 compared to 2023, which is an incredible blessing. And we finished the year strong, and as a result of the success, now we're working on other projects. I'm working on a project that I'm hoping to launch here. Hopefully, I'm just going to keep it brief. Keep it general. Say Q1. I am trying to target February as a launch. This is going to be a Mediterranean concept called Sand and Cedar Taverna. It's going to be Lebanese centric, so Lebanese, Turkish, Greek, and Moroccan. It's going to be small plates with some large experiences. The build is gorgeous. It's an old world build. It's about a 5,500 square foot restaurant. It's going to have about 220 seats in it. And we have north of 40 arches, old world arches that stand at 15 feet tall, made of real, beautiful brick, old brick. And the designers and the architects and the builders have done an incredible job. So we're looking forward to that launch, hopefully in February. And then we took over a building that was a nightclub for, I think it was open in the 50s. It's actually a huge landmark here in Ocean City. And for the first time, we're going to convert it into a beautiful French restaurant, but it's going to have different elements to it. It'll have an entertainment component. This is a 16,000 square foot building. It is a monster. But what's cool is we've kind of made it more intimate on the inside and give it like different themes, like rooms with different themes. So everything feels intimate and small, but can also be big if need be, if you have a big event. So that'll be a French bistro. We're going to age our own steaks in-house. We're going to have seafood on ice. We'll have a piano bar on one side. We'll have blues and jazz on the other, and different types of entertainment depending if someone comes in, and does something unique. We can definitely hold up to over 1,000 people for events, and it's going to be a 750-seater. That is looking to be like a July launch. That'll be called the Bistro and Lounge. The Bistro and Lounge coming this 2025 in July. And then I've also, what you didn't know, this is new, I'm actually dealing with 2 more projects for the summer. So there was a space on the boardwalk on 14th Street, beautiful space overlooking the ocean. And I'm creating a French Mediterranean concept. It'll be the first of its kind here also. And for the record, the Cedar Taverna, which is the Mediterranean concept, the Bistro and Lounge, which is that French concept, those 2 concepts, as was Spain, will be the first concepts of their kind in Ocean City. So at this point, none of these concepts do exist. And, one of the reasons I even got into wanting to do these concepts was the love that the people had of Spain. When we had guests visiting us, they were so appreciative. They were like so overwhelmed. They kept telling me, Pete, thank you so much for bringing this. We've been waiting for this. And you can see these people almost in tears of excitement because these are lifelongers who've been here, for 30, 40 years eating the same things. And I think they were finally getting frustrated, and they were so grateful and so happy. And it's only because of that I decided to work on all these other concepts, to bring something different for everybody, where it's elevated, where they can feel proud. I know I had some businessmen who were here, who were very well-to-do, who were always embarrassed on taking guests from out of town out because they had nowhere to go. And so now they finally felt something that they were proud of, to be able to bring their clients and their guests over to be able to enjoy Ocean City, because they're very proud, because they've been here for generations. So that's one of the reasons I decided to do all these other concepts. So this is called Bai-Tee Bakery, Bai-Tee, Bai-Tee Bakery. Bai-Tee in Arabic means my home's bakery. And I have an amazing chef from New York City who's been on Beat Bobby Flay. She's been on all over Food Network. Her name is Judy Anderson. She was actually written in the New York Times, and she's a good friend of mine. I actually knew her when I lived in New York. We were really good friends, and I actually got her first job in a kitchen back when I knew her, because I had some connections there, and she worked for Chef Daniel, from Daniel's. So DBGB was the restaurant she was actually in, but she got moved around, and she got some really amazing exposure and did very, very well. Anyway, she is moving back. She actually was the chef that opened up Magnolia Bakery in New York, in Soho.
There you go.
So Magnolia, if you remember, Justin, the one in Radio City Music Hall.
I can't even. That business is phenomenal, but go on. Like, that's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And talk about patience and consistency and discipline and not growing too fast, even though you're popular, and protecting your brand. No one has done it better in the dessert game than them, particularly now that we see the Crumble example, which is they grow so fast and were so popular that now they were a fad, and the store sales are 75% down per store.
In New York. Yeah, in New York.
Yeah, and Magnolia Bakery is not. Magnolia Bakery is doing really well, but I was talking about Crumble, the cookie store that
Oh yeah,
grew so
Crumble.
quickly as an
Yep.
example of what not to do because they grew so quickly. Great. They're billionaires. Great. I love it. But now the franchisees are suffering big time because store sales are down and they grew too
Yep.
fast and the fad is over and they didn't control it and protect the brand enough. And make it feel exclusive anymore. Magnolia did that. I love Magnolia. Actually, their banana bread pudding is the most
Oh,
phenomenal
so
thing in the world.
you know what's funny? We did the tasting yesterday, and it was there in front of me. And she was one of the original pioneers and the chefs to work on that. So she actually did create it, but we made it like she made it her own for this concept, right? So it was oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, I should tell you guys a story. Like, it is so good that when we go to New York over the years, in my previous life, my stepkids would pile the 16-ounce things of bread pudding into their suitcases or into their bags. And sometimes they would forget to take them out of their carry-on because they were eating them in the car and there'd be some left over. But you get flagged in security. Like, it's a dense dessert. And it doesn't look like anything good other than bomb-making material. Sorry to say it online, but that is what it looks like when it goes to the machine. But you cannot help but buy multiples and try to take them with you. It frees as well.
So good.
And now I believe it ships anywhere through Goldbelly. So now, instead of having brick and mortars everywhere, they just ship to you.
Exactly.
So
and you know what's
go ahead.
is,
I got off on a tangent there, but I just love the business model.
Banana pudding is so delicious. It needs its own time.
It needs its own episode by itself, maybe a part 3 series just for each part of it.
Exactly. Well, you know what's amazing is we're pulling in, and I'm not saying we're doing it their style, but we're doing Levain, bakery style cookies. We're doing, the cupcakes from, kind of the similar approach to the way Magnolia did it. Of course, the banana pudding. But we're also doing something similar to if you've ever been to a Tate Bakery, please look them up. Tatte Bakery. They started in Connecticut and Mass. They're heavily growing in the DC market. I think there's north of 30 locations. The chef is Israeli. She's a beast. She's super talented, and she has and I've always wanted to do a French Mediterranean concept. So this concept is very similar to that, in the sense of we're going to have salads, but instead of having a traditional salad that would be used to, imagine doing grilled halloumi cheese or doing a falafel salad or doing croissants,
but having it for the magic word, the falafel word.
The falafel, yeah.
Anyway,
you already know, Justin.
There better be a fat camel falafel salad on there. Coming out of nowhere. They're going to be like, what? This is an upscale fine dining restaurant. What's a name like Fat Camel doing on the menu?
Well, I'm going to tell you something really funny, because in this bakery, so when you're on the boardwalk, you have to take 10 steps up, and then you have the restaurant. So you're sitting on this balcony that's huge, where I can seat maybe 80 people, and you're at eye level with the seashore, with no unobstructed views, right? There's no, the boardwalk is below, so you can see the people walking on the boardwalk below you. You're 10 steps up, you can see them below you, but your eye carries right to the seashore. And then just imagine having your breakfast in the morning, having your coffee or your fresh juice. That's kind of the style that we're looking for there. I do have a liquor license on this property as well, so we're looking at creating some fun, summer style drinks, maybe with ice, and maybe doing handcrafted cocktails, but kind of have that frozen twist to it, and trying to, be really particular and careful so that way nothing tastes watered down. So we're working on that now as we speak. So I'm really excited. That looks like to be an April to May launch. It will be, right now we're thinking seasonal. However, because there's a huge bread station here, we may use it as a commissary for the bistro, for the baguettes and maybe the big pitas that we're going to use for St. and Cedar for the handheld. This would be an opportunity to maybe make them here, or potentially the Spain bread that we're using now. We do have a third-party company who makes our recipe, and they deliver it for us fresh every single morning. This may be an opportunity now, because we have the space to be able to create this. It's kind of like a sourdough blended with a brioche style bun. It's amazing. It's really, really tasty. But these are opportunities now where we can actually use this as a commissary all year as well for those restaurants, and potentially maybe even in the off season, because we have amazing parking right there. So we may have something where we close at noon, where we'll make some fresh breads and cupcakes, and some, we'll have ham and cheese, and, we'll have shakshuka, on a skillet, with fresh bread on the side, which again is a Mediterranean vibe, and potentially do some handhelds, artisanal flatbreads, etc. That's kind of like the focal point on what we're doing at Bai-Tee Bakery. And then finally, this is kind of a funny story, but there's a property on the marina here. It was in my hands over a year ago, and it was before I had the bistro. It was only when I had Sand and Cedar in Spain at the time, and we were looking to launch it last summer. Long story short, the bistro came into play. It was a property that we finally took over. The owner of the property on the marina had approached me and said, "Pete, the property is yours. However, I have an amazing deal from somebody else, and it's up to you. If you want to give it to them, you can. If you want to keep it, it's yours." And I said, "You know what? I'm happy you approached me. I feel a little bit overwhelmed with everything that I have now in my hands. By all means, please give it to them." And so they did. They took it over, and they launched it before the summer last year. I think they put almost $1 million into the space, and I guess they didn't do the numbers they were expecting. And there was a little, let's say, disassembly, like it was disassembled, like the team. And so the guy who was on the hook for the loan, for the rent, was basically asking the owner for help. And that's when they came back and turned around and asked me for help again. And so now I get a restaurant that has almost about $1 million of construction into it from the previous year. And I'm going to make it into an oyster house. So we don't have an oyster house concept really here. There's one in Rehoboth, but there isn't one down here. Have you ever been to Henny Oyster House in Rehoboth?
I have, yes.
So I want to kind of make it similar to that warm, homey feel with great seafood, and have a nice solid raw bar. And what's interesting is, and this is how God works in mysterious ways, I had Chef Luis out of DC who approached me a couple of years ago about coming up to Ocean City. At the time, I didn't have anything for him, and I had just remembered our conversation. He was very heavily into seafood. He works for amazing restaurants in DC, and he's still there now. Anyway, I made a phone call to him back in November before I made a decision on this property. And I said, "Hey, what's going on with you?" We kind of caught up. Long story short, he said that the timing was perfect. He was excited to come out. He already came out once. We do have an agreement, and he's coming back in January. We're going to start doing a test kitchen and working on some recipes, but he's going to be my guy who runs this concept. So this is also because the property, it's right on the marina. So imagine like fresh fish right off the boat. We would have basically the marina as well as the restaurant. Restaurant's about 8,000 square feet. It's big. And it has 2 floors to it. And the top floor is a rooftop overlooking the bay. And then the restaurant below it, it's really, really beautiful. And it faces west on the marina. It's not far from Spain. I can't really get into more detail than that right now. But we are looking to launch this hopefully also this summer. Again, I'm going to have to do a little bit of like fine tuning, make some adjustments, get the rest, this will be potentially an all year round concept as well. So right now we have, and I think in my mind, it's all going to be okay because of where, we already have Sand and Cedar's team kind of like built. I mean, we still have to have a lot more hires, but the chefs are there. The management team is ready. The bistro, I have a chef ready for that. That's going to be, Bai-Tee Bakery is going to be handled. The bistro's good to go. So this is, and I have the chef here for this concept. Now it's just a matter of building management team and training and then making some adjustments. And I think, we can get us all up and running this summer. So that's what's going on with me right now.
Yeah, I want to talk about a few things. Peter, I'm going to highlight a few things for the audience just on what you said, and I'm going to ask some questions here. One is I want to focus on something that is important in the world of being an entrepreneur. There are plenty of times as an entrepreneur that our business model has to be David versus Goliath. We have to go into the big waters. We have to go into a New York City, a Los Angeles, a Chicago, those markets like that, and put a restaurant down or a business. It is much harder. Okay. I get it. There's more people. There's more foot traffic. There's more revenue. That is one model. Okay. You will end up with more scars. I will call that the shark mentality. Okay. Then there's what I would call the manatee mentality. The manatee inhabits the same salt water as the shark. The manatee lives a different life than the shark, though. Okay, the manatee has found areas where there are no predators other than humans with their boats, and it just goes and it lives a very happy life, very peaceful life, eating as much food as it wants because it has no real competitors. Maybe there's an alligator here and there. But the difference is, where is the opportunity to thrive and survive and create difference? Okay. Manatees make a difference in their environment. They are part of the ecosystem. So sometimes as entrepreneurs, the strategy isn't always to go for a flagship move or a big move. It is to what's called a renaissance move. Okay. That has become go to a small pond and become a big fish and have what's called a Renaissance period, okay? We think of Italy when we think of the Renaissance in Europe, but the reality is everything up until that point that was good, that was happening in the world, was coming out of Paris. There's the bright ideas and the great thinkers or whatever. And places like that. There were other places in the world. Italy just happened to have a revolution, maybe because of Christianity. We can argue that later.
Right.
But the same thing is here, and Italy all of a sudden became a superpower again in a different way culturally, like they did with the Roman Empire. And because of all the infrastructure of the Roman Empire, that Renaissance was able to spread through the world 1,000 years after kind of the crumble of the Roman Empire-esque, around that ish. And so I think that that's, from a strategy standpoint, a historical standpoint, what we're talking about here is people go to Hawaii, go to Mexico, go to the Caribbean, go to the beach towns all the time. Those type of beaches, we'll call them beach towns, but we don't call them beach towns because they're open year round, and they get good food, high quality restaurant, fine dining, 24/7, high quality service. But yeah, we go to beach towns in the United States and we lower our standard. I'm just going to say it. Fried food, lots of soda, don't really care what's going on anymore. It's a different type of vacation. It's almost like a smorgasbord of disaster, health-wise, maybe even family-wise, who knows?
Right.
So I want to highlight that there is this push, what we call deurbanization, but what it does is people move to areas they like, whether they're beach towns, whether it's cold there or not. There's people there 24/7 that need to be serviced, and there's people there that in transitional towns like beach towns, and I learned this from when we were building and designing a restaurant, is the seasonality of your restaurant also matters how well you service the locals during the off season, because they're your word of mouth, period.
Right. 100%. That's a big deal here, by the way.
Yeah.
That is a huge deal. That was in my ear from the time I got here.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about why you're still open during the wintertime when almost every one of your competitors, quote unquote, or your partners or everyone else who's trying to build a hospitality environment collectively in Ocean City, which is the way I look at it. And everyone thinks it's competition, but really everyone's building this city that's growing rapidly because it's only so big and there's only so many hotels and you can only go up. So,
well, I have a theory. I have a theory on why. So, there's a few restaurants that were open before I got here, like maybe two, and they were by the same owner. So he had one in Fenwick, which is in Delaware, which is just to put that in perspective, it's about a half hour away from his other restaurant in Ocean City. And so I think value and quality, and when you go into a restaurant, you want an experience. You want. And nobody really offered experiences. They just offered, kind of a transactional experience where you go in there and you say, hey, how can I help you? And I'll have chicken nuggets, and some fries and, a burger, and that's fine, right? People want that experience once in a while.
Well, because everyone thinks the mentality of the vacationer is, oh my God, I'm spending so much money. I need to give them the most bang for their buck, meaning the cheapest food possible and the most quantity possible for the best price possible. Because that's what, for whatever reason, people think when people go to the beach that everyone's looking for a value proposition.
Exactly.
But anyway, go ahead.
That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, they weren't offering anything special. So I kind of get it. Like, would I want to go there in the off season and have that experience? Probably not, So all the restaurants that really offered more, where you're offering good service, you're offering good food, maybe the vibe is there, like if it's like, okay, hey, I feel like I'm actually going out, I'm getting out of my house. It's the winter. It could be kind of depressing sitting, like right now I'm looking at this snowstorm, like hitting, the beach is all filled with snow right now. And it's dark, you kind of feel like you're trapped and because there's nobody here and you want to go see other people. So the few places that have those experiences are the places that are doing well all year round. And that's what we built with Spain, a concept. We're closed. We're actually renovating our kitchen right now at Spain. And so I closed on the 2nd and we're going to reopen on the 15th. And so that's the only reason. And I've never done that before. I've never been closed. This is the first time because I have to get this kitchen expansion because we were impacted when we were very, very busy on food in the kitchen. The food times were really getting pushed back. So I decided to expand the kitchen to kind of get that, fixed. Well, anyway, I've had so many phone calls, even though we've had it advertised, people are still calling, wanting to get in. And I can tell you on New Year's Day, we decided to open for brunch. That was like the last day we were open. And in this town that nobody's here, we had 330 covers from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We had to it was crazy. When we did the last week of...
With an average check, I'm guessing, of well over $100.
No, actually, I don't.
Really?
So my concept, I don't do that. I like the people coming in. My average is actually $54.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
That's why I brought it up. I was just trying to understand. And so you're staying open, 300 covers. Everyone can do the math. That's about $6,000, right?
Well, no, it's
$60,000.
It was yeah. So that it was 300. So yeah, so that's about 15. I think we did $15,000 or $16,000.
Perfect. Go on.
Yeah. So and brunch, we do a different concept. We do we have either a la carte option or we have an all you can eat option, or what we call a bottomless. But the bottomless option is still made to order. It's still fresh. The only difference is the portions are smaller. You can order as much of it as you want. And when you sit at the table, everybody has to be on the same page. So if you're with 5 people, all 5 people have to either do a la carte or they have to commit to the bottomless because of the way we service it. And then we bring in small plates and we let the servers kind of take over. We ask them if they have any allergies or dietary restrictions. And we say, let me treat you like my own family. I'll portion everything out. If you see something you really want, though, please let me know. Otherwise, just have a great experience. Sit back. They take drink orders. We actually discount drinks. Like mimosas, I think, are $3 if you do bottomless. If not, it's like normal $7. It's a $7 drink for a mimosa or a Bloody Mary. So that's actually been very, very successful for us. But even like regular dinner service, I mean, for the year we average about $54 a head, and it's always been kind of my number. I think if I was in Miami or if I was in the DC market or a New York market, my average would probably be between 75 and 80 just because of rent and because of other things. But I try to keep things, and our ROI for the year was amazing. I mean, right now we're at 27, we finished at 27% for the year in terms of ROI. And remember, this is a place where even though you're bottomless and you're getting eggs, I'm serving you organic eggs. I'm not serving you anything less, so you're getting organic eggs, you're getting Creekstone meats, you're getting Freebird Farm chicken, which is, no hormones, so we're very particular on our food. So you're getting the best quality dishes. And this is where you start the science of plating, making sure that, there's value in every dish, and I think that's the most important thing. People don't feel like they're being, and I think between the experience of service, the vibe and everything we've done with the space, that even though I think we're probably pricier than most places, here, I think at the same time, people feel the value, which is the most important thing. And that's why they keep coming back, because they say, hey, we know that we're paying $150 for his tomahawk steak, or $175 or $180, depending on what time of the year it is and what our costs are. But at the end of the day, nobody really complains about that, because, we make sure that the staff is trained. We make sure managers are guest present, in front of people. We make sure they have an amazing experience, like an above and beyond experience. That is our standard. And that seems to be really helping us out quite a bit on why we're, able to open all year round. As far as the locals, I know you mentioned something about
Word
that's
of
very,
mouth.
very
Yeah.
important for the off season.
Yeah. Word of
It's
mouth.
critical. And so what we've done, and I don't know where this is going to be broadcasted. I'll say a couple things. I'll say we do have a 10% discount for locals. There is a phrase that we tell our guests what to say. It's kind of like a speakeasy vibe where we say, hey, if you say this phrase, you know, you have 10% discount every single time you're here. If you come here 6 days a week, you're getting that discount 6 times in that week. And so I'm not going to say what that phrase is because we usually share that with our guests. Once we find out they're a local, we casually share it with them. So this is by having organic conversation, genuine conversation. So, hey, where are you from? Oh, we live in Salisbury. Oh, very nice. When was the last time you were here? Oh, this is our first time. And we start to engage in conversation, get to know our guests. And then we kind of on the back end say, just because you're local, just so you know, if you say this phrase, this is what you get. And we tell them that. And it's kind of has that speakeasy mentality. We don't advertise it. We don't promote it. We just share with our guests who are local so they know that they can come back anytime and get that discount.
Yeah, I want to highlight something too in your strategy that I think is important that I recommend to anyone in beach towns. The thing about this is if you're servicing the locals when there's no tourists around, when their family comes into town because they live near the beach during the summer, or the grandchildren are in town or whatever, because it's summertime and they want to go have a nice meal with a good view or go down to the beach for a day or do whatever, guess where they're going to spend their additional dollars again? It's long term, guys, and the relationship matters, not because you're making money, but because if you think about it in the long term, it's not transactional anymore. It's a relationship that matters to both of you now. They get the experience. They get the memory. They get to come downtown to the beach and have a good view and a good meal and healthy food that makes them feel good. And you get their business and them choosing to spend their money with you. It is a choice. And I think that that's one of the important things about building successful businesses is we often think about the immediate money. We don't think about the long-term thing here. I'm going to anchor this.
That's right.
Because when I met Peter 12 years ago now, 13 years ago, almost 14 years ago, and we were trying to get the falafel thing off the ground, and Peter didn't have much experience. He was just working his way up from the bottom and taking any jobs that he could in food. And we were trying to support him as a business. And gosh, we did looked at a lot of buildings, tried to do a lot of deals, get a lot of financing. We just could never get it to work. But that was God doing what he was doing, because I think the difference in quality of life and quality of life you're giving other humans because of the quality of businesses you have now versus a falafel place is significantly different. So I can see God working, but I just want to say to all those individuals out there that were naysaying back then or didn't have much faith, or why invest in someone, because it's about the human, their drive and their desire. And what is in their jar? Is it spiritual? Is it the Holy Spirit? Investing in people like that, they will succeed. There are the humans that no matter what it is, they will pivot, they will transition, they will relearn, they will go to the bottom, and they have a humility and an ability to survive in a situation that most people can't even understand, because most people will not walk away from their 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with a yard and live in their car or in a 1-bedroom or a shared studio or whatever it is to rebuild their life and chase their dreams. Okay. So that human that's willing to go to that level is willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, but also do it in the right way and only the right way, because the only way that human will take success is if it comes by doing the right thing. So that's where we are with Peter right now. 12 years, 14 years later, did the right thing, invested the time, treated humans, took his licks, earned his stripes, changed his character, built a character, then used that character to leverage people to invest in him.
Life has been, and Justin, thank you for sharing that. Like, I get chills just hearing you, share that. It has been a crazy journey. I sometimes have to pinch myself to see, like, like what's happened in life and where I am. And, I'm reminded of like stories of like Moses, and maybe in wandering the desert for 40 years. This is not 40 years, right? But wandering the desert for 40 years and being patient as, and trusting God, at the time, and dealing with people, the people that were with him, were giving up on him. Even after they saw like the parting of the Red Sea, right? They're running out of Egypt, and there's like literally this miracle happening, right? They see the sea parting and they walk through the sea and the soldiers are coming. And again, even after they cross the sea, they're like, what have you done? And it's like craziness still happening. And like, even though they saw things, they still didn't have that 100% faith. They kept going back to who they were and living in fear. And, what's interesting is, even after that happened and they wanted the desert, they still tried to go back to creating, gods, like sculpt, statues, right?
They still went to their false idols. Yep. Right back to them.
After all that, I'm like, dude, didn't I just show you all these things? Are you crazy? Like,
you think you know better again? Where you stand? You did it this time? Oh, you did it. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Like, we're not seeing, if we pay attention, to our lives, we are seeing supernatural involvement in our lives if we allow it to, if we allow ourselves to see those things. And I have, I feel like everything that's happened, even though it says, oh yeah, Pete, good job, you did it. I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. The only thing I did was have faith, and look, let's be honest. I wasn't sitting on the couch, like waiting for all this to happen too. They say work without faith is dead. So at the end of the day, you have to have both, and I think when I hear the story and how you just shared that with me, it gives me kind of goosebumps and chills because, it's nice to kind of go back and remember where you started. And I feel like everything I do now, and look, I'm doing a lot of firsts. I'm building these restaurants and I'm doing things that sometimes I have no idea. Like when I really sit and think about it, I'm like, how am I going to figure this part out? And how am I going to do that? And people ask me, Pete, how are you going to staff it? And how are you're gonna go compete against yourself, and you're gonna do all these things, you know what I mean? And I said, look, I pray on everything, and if it feels easy and it comes easy, I say, God, let your will be done. I don't need to do this. I'm content with what I have. I really am. But at the end of the day, my mission statement behind the restaurants is to share his word and share his grace with others. And that's the only thing I care about. So I'm like, at the end of the day, it's a platform for me. Like, these are going to be platforms, be able to share his word. And the more platforms we have, the bigger our voice will be, towards our cause, right? And at the end of the day, we could talk about how we're doing that. And, we do it, obviously there's the whole training process on how we do share God's love and God's grace with others and our guests. And we've had beautiful fellowship with our guests, believe it or not. We've had people in tears just reading some of our notes and our messaging, which is what we're doing. Even on the menu, believe it or not, it's been a beautiful thing to see. And, you're catching people at certain times in their life and you don't know what's going on with people. So you have to be really gentle, with people and just really love them. And, sometimes you can catch people at their worst, they're going through something and you just have to be strong and, and they can manifest their frustration in different ways. It could just be sadness. It could be anger. They could be mean to you for no reason. You just, like I teach my team, turn the other cheek. This is where we exercise. This is where this matters. Everything we talked about, it matters now. Like someone's frustrated at you and you did nothing wrong. That's perfect. This is where you become strong. You know what I mean? Start to develop yourself because this is what God is giving back to you. You wanted strength? Well, he doesn't just inject muscles into you. He gives you, he gives you situations to build strength and to build character. And I'm like, this is what we're about. And so I try to inject that in the kids, and our staff. And, you can see them slowly like becoming just amazing people, not just amazing servers, but more importantly to me, amazing people. And that's what we're trying to focus on and build. And I feel like God's really blessed me and grace, and all these things that even though I have no idea what the heck I'm doing sometimes, I don't feel uncomfortable. I don't feel like stressed out. I'm very calm. I'm very collected. I'm just keep going through it. We figure it out. And that's what we do, and that's what's happened.
I'm going to use this analogy. It's the craziest thing I know. In your life's like sometimes you go through these rock bottom periods. Definitely just had one. and the dark night of the soul, as we discussed last time on the first episode. But the thing that happens is it's a weirdest thing. And I don't know how to explain to anyone to this because it goes against all of human nature. When we're at our worst, yes, do we need to rebuild and think things through and be silent and do whatever. But there's a way of doing it where we're hitting the gas. Okay. It's like, okay, we're sliding out of control on ice in our car. Okay. The only way to get control of the car again is hit the gas. The only way to straighten out the car, hit the gas. I know it's crazy and people are like, oh, you're going to keep fishtailing or whatever, especially if it's not a 4-wheel drive. The only way to get control of the car of any hope, the highest percentage, even if it's out of control crazy, is to hit the gas. And it's something for everyone to really think about because, you know, when I talk about Peter trying to do it, Peter and I were running around New York City for 2.5 years looking at properties.
Yep.
Trying to get deals done, match up investors to financial stuff. And whether it was situations with investors or financing or the financial crisis lingering or things changing in the way the world was done, it all changed, which brought Peter to DC, which led him in the direction he is. But at the end of the day, like, it's that gas part that I think, like, things are out of control. Okay, I'm having to work 2 jobs. Like, I'm making way less money than I've ever made before. Okay, what is it that I need to do? You know, well, I'm in a humbling standpoint. God has me here for a reason. So I need to do the best I can in this scenario, and it will lead to more. This is biblical. This is not just Peter. Well, maybe it's Peter from the Bible in some ways, but it's right. We have to learn. We have to be humbled in order to have greatness. Like Moses was cast out of Egypt. He killed an Egyptian. He didn't have anything. You want to talk about, he was wandering the desert. What am I going to do? Thank God this hot woman and her dad took me in. You know, right? Because that's his wife.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, she was, compared to the Pharaoh and the home he lived in, they were farmers. They were the lowest of the lowest on the scale of class at that time, other than a slave. So, I mean, that's the humility we're talking about here that I think is important, that whenever we think things are bad or things are not going well in our life, it's not what we think. It may take a long time, but it's not what we think. It's not bad. The word bad needs to be removed because this is an opportunity for long-term good and discipline and obedience. Go ahead.
Sorry, Justin, I didn't mean to interject. And remember how close we were, too. We were at that close, and who goes to a close and still walks out without the keys? Like, never. That just never happened. That was, you know, and then for what reason? So there's a lot going on.
And that was the meeting I dislocated my shoulder so bad. Yep. That was the final ending of my shoulder after years of trauma. Like, we ended up at 2 different hospitals. That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's where everything changed. That's where we're sort of like, that's where we both sort of pivoted from that point. I think it was a pivoting point when that happened.
Yep.
But 2.5 years in, though, because we started in 2011 and that was 2013. So that gives the audience an idea of how long we were hustling around trying to get that done. So crazy. But it worked out. I think it worked out for the better, and your knowledge and your industry and all the things you learn by being humble and starting at the bottom, and the experience and the respect you get from everyone because they know your humble beginnings, I think matters. That is important. And I also think that the humble beginnings weren't when you were born. The humble beginnings were your life was reborn in a way.
100%. 100%. Yeah, because, you know, you make a decision on who you want to become, and that didn't happen. That happened for me later in life, you know.
Yeah, me too.
But what a blessing. You know, we still have our lives ahead of us, and, you know, it's now to be able to make the impact and share that with others is a huge blessing. So I'm grateful for all my sufferings and all the hardships, and I'm grateful. I'm seriously grateful. I would never change a thing, because knowing what I know today, knowing, you know, the perseverance and how God's worked in mysterious ways, and being patient and doing things for the right reasons. We talked earlier before we got on this call, about doing things for the right reason, even if that means losing, dollars, even if that means losing money, doing things for the right reason, because that protects the integrity of who you are. And that's more important than anything else.
Yeah, and it's the craziest. When I do it and I do the right thing, that the abundance that comes back because I'm not seeking it is so great. When I do make the wrong decision, it doesn't just cost me the immediate problem. That compounding problem, really, it's one of those things where it's not just a sin. That sin compounds in a way that is just unbelievable. And it's the same in life. We don't see how fast these things compound. It happens, in time, and time goes by quickly. And so that's sort of, for me, I try to always do the right thing, but if I ever don't, or I make a mistake and I don't, that compounding problem lets me know I made a mistake or a wrong decision or a sinful decision, however you want to look at it, pretty quickly. And the reason I bring this up is because for me, it's a lot easier to run our businesses, manage the employees. And I know people think it's harder, and how do you mix secular and society? It's not hard when you already have a foundation that's been proven for tens of thousands of years in the Old Testament and 2,000 years plus in the New Testament, and then practiced and worn through society and leaders and business people ever since.
Mm-hmm.
We're not inventing it. We're just using it in the way and allowing it to be customized into our environment, but it's still the same. And so talk a little bit about that, Peter, because a lot of people are so afraid of mixing their spiritual beliefs into their secular businesses, since for some reason we think they're separated in the United States.
Well, I think that people are, maybe fearing that because that's what's kind of been advertised, you know what I mean, by the wrong people. I think there's a way. I mean, look, when I made my mission statement, before I did this journey, I wanted to know how to include his name and his grace into other people, into my business. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how it was going to look. And as I grew my business and as I changed as a person, I realized life is short, and, I think I separate, like, our lives on earth, if we get 60, 50, 80 years of life here, it's insignificant on a chalkboard. And then if you take that line and just go across the rest of the chalkboard, for eternity, that's really what I'm living for. I'm not living for the dot. The problem, with where we live and how we live, we invest so much education. We invest so much, like our investments. Oh, as a kid, you have to do a 529 for your kids, invest the 401k, make sure you go into stocks so you can build a future and you can retire. And you focus so much energy, so much effort into your short, insignificant life on this planet. It's so insignificant and it's so tiny and so small. We do life insurance. We do all these insurance policies just in case something happens to us, right? But what about eternal life? What are we doing for that? Like, what are we investing for something? Like, when you look at investment, you talk about long-term investments, right? You diversify. Hey, is it a short-term investment? You do some long-term investments. Well, I decided that my long-term investment was going to be my spiritual investment. And I didn't want this operation, I wanted to give it some depth, into what I was doing. And in order to bring depth, I wanted to bring in the spirituality, bring God into what I was doing, because I wanted to generate something bigger than just revenue. I wanted to change lives. I wanted to impact people. I really wanted to share his message. And in doing so, we're making more money than we expected to make. This year, at Spain, we hit 7.4 million in revenue. I mean, I never expected to even hit 6 million. I mean, not even possible. I didn't think that was even a possibility.
When you told me you were going into Ocean City, I was like, I didn't expect it to break 3 million, if I were to be honest. I'm like, oh gosh, that's a tough market. It's going to take some real toughness to get a stronghold there. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, incredible. And look, at the end of the day, it's kind of crazy, but none of this matters to me. like yes, numbers do matter. We do talk about numbers when we have our meetings on Tuesdays. We do talk in the shadow, because at the end of the day, the business is to be sustainable in order to keep this 120 employees, make sure that they're being taken care of, making sure that they have their lives and they're being employed. You know what I mean? But aside from that, like, the goal really is just much greater than that. And the task that I have is obviously been, making sure people are on board and that they're executing, because it can't just be me. It has to be everybody. And I guess my greatest reward in all of this is, I have no fear. I made a decision, like I said, told you earlier, on who I was going to become. I felt like a little bit of a coward when I was younger. I kind of kept my religious beliefs to myself. Unless somebody asked me, I kept it to myself. It's a very personal thing between God and myself. But I also felt like I was using that as an excuse to not share it with other people. And I was tired of being that coward. I was tired of, fighting, behind it. Even if people said things that I didn't agree with, I kind of just wouldn't say a thing. And I would just kind of like, just, and not say anything, And so I felt like, and I had heard a sermon from the priest, this is several years ago, and it impacted me. And it was about exactly what we're talking about. And I felt so ashamed. Like, it's like, if my daughter was in front of me and someone had said something to my daughter, you better believe I would react. You know what I mean? I would react. And it would be very negative. It would be very fast, And I said, I'm so protective of my kids, but yeah, I'm not protective of my father, like the person who gave me everything. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to make a decision to bring in God. And I'm going to tell you, people have told me, they have, just because they read my mission. It's on LinkedIn. If you read my LinkedIn, if you go to my website, it's on there who I am. It's on my menu. Even on my social media sites, I have like a little verse. On our to-go bags, I have verses with quoting the verses on my to-go bags. And my to-go bags are not throwaways, by the way. My to-go bags are a quality where you can use them as beach towels, right? So we can actually reuse them. They're the nicer cloth. I didn't want to put a verse on something that would be thrown away. So I wanted to make sure that the quality was there, because that, to me, like, it's not right to throw something away that has, like, that's how we grew up anyway. You don't throw away.
Yeah, exactly.
Things in Jesus. You can't just do that.
Throw away the other idols, but not that one.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I actually even have the verses now, like, printed on our to-go bags. And what's funny is one of my managers, his dad is a pastor, by the way. He goes, when he saw that, his eyes lit up. He goes, Pete, don't you think that's a bit much? I go, no, I actually don't think it's enough. I think this is just the start of where we're going to be. And I said, you need to be bold. I was just like that, I was just like that. I don't want to say his name. I was just like that myself when I was younger. And now this is who I want to become. And I'm not going to, no matter where the world is, because of where the world is today, we need to be that shining light. And I said, it's just, why are we here? Why am I having you guys work 50, 60-hour weeks? Why am I putting 100, like, why am I doing all this stuff? Like, let me start my missions early in life. Let me start, like, focusing on why we're here, and the rest will come. And I've had people tell me, the reason we come to your restaurant is because we read your mission statement, and now we're lifelong, we're going to be lifelong guests. This is why we're here. And he's like, don't get me wrong. We love your food. We love the vibe. It's amazing. But, we are here because of that. And we want you to know that. And I've had so many people tell me those things. And that's something where you just have to be bold. You have to make a decision on who you want to become. You have to, and understand, God's grace is, this is all like, when I have my last breath, I want to know that I had some type of positive impact on this planet, that I fought the devil. The devil's everywhere. And he doesn't come with the horns and the tail and, the crazy teeth. Exactly. He doesn't do that. He plants a seed, and that seed grows over time. And the more you give yourself to God, the more your vision changes. What you see may hurt you more than the person who's sitting next to you, who may see something that is just become the norm, right? But if you change your vision and your goal, it's not just about looking at other people, but it's also about helping them. It's not enough to just to disagree with someone. it's it's important to be able to be there for them, even though you disagree. Like, that's the most important thing is how can you be respectful? Because at the end of the day, if someone punches you and you punch them right back, it's against what God wants. The hardest part about being human, and I think strength, isn't about slapping somebody back. It's about keeping your hands down and saying, it's okay. I love you no matter what.
Yeah, it's the
I love you
reaction.
no matter what. Yep, that's strength. And when you look at that, that will shock the other person. And they'll say, well, you're a coward. I'm like, you may think that, but the Lord, that's more strength than anything else. That is strong will. And you'll be surprised if people see those things, then they're going to be like, who are you? What's wrong with you? Like, why did? And then I can tell them, and I'll tell them why. I said, because this is what God's commandment is. And I'm not a perfect person by any means, but at the end of the day, it's one of those baby steps. Like, it's a journey where you kind of put the puzzle together and you strengthen. Okay, let me work on this part. Let me focus on this part. Let me focus on this part. And then overall, your journey, hopefully, and you'll still be imperfect, right? But at the end of the day, at least you worked on those things to be better. And that's what God wants to see, At least
Yeah, I agree. It's the improvement. It's the pursuit of, excellence, the growth towards him, more like him, that I think is the key there, the walking with Jesus and being like Jesus in any way that we can. And I know that everyone thinks that's getting rid of our individuality. It's actually the opposite. I know that's hard. It bends the mind, but spirituality often does. And so does theology. But I want to make a point here on something. I think that when we truly pursue our purpose and we align it with God, whatever our lot is in life, it's not financial abundance or abundance of resources. It takes what the seeds that were planted in us, that were meant to be grown, that were instilled in us. I like the APEST test. I've talked about it before on another episode. That's APEST for anyone who's out there. I recommend taking it for your spiritual gifts. And it is biblical and something I learned in seminary. I love it. I wish it's better than any personality test ever on the planet. But the thing that I've also had to go through is some quietness. And I went to seminary. I'm on a leave of absence this semester. And I'm trying to figure all of it out because it's so much work and everything else. But I will tell you, one of the things that in the silence, I was trying to do 40 days, 40 nights, speaking as little as possible, only when asked questions, only when needing the help. I wasn't going to put anything into the world out of my mouth that wasn't beneficial or positive to the world. It ended up going on almost 7 months, actually 6 months-ish, and where I just liked it, and I'm like, I'm going to listen. And amongst all of it, amongst all the work and studies of the Bible, the one thing that oddly happened in the equipping that was going on in seminary and the pursuit I was trying to, or may still try to do a Master of Divinity in leadership specifically, is that what God told me, well, I would have had, in order to keep it up, there's no podcast. There's no doing what I was doing as a food entrepreneur in the way. So in the silence, in the thing I heard by just listening and not putting my own ego in there or my own thoughts and desires, is that you, in a way, I'm going to just say it this way, because it's like, you idiot, I already gave you all the tools and equipment to go spread my word to the world. I gave you the power. You have an audience. What are you doing here? I've now trained you. You now have the next pieces. You have connections with people who have the answers. Like, I met a ton of people in seminary. They can give me any answers I need. I know how to find the books. I know where the library is. I know how to do the studying now. Like, so that doesn't mean that seminary is not important. It just means that amongst it is I have the ability to now sharpen my skills, and God doesn't always take us in a direction because it's long term. It's meant to guide us and give us clarity. In your case, he was equipping you, he was arming you. In my case too, and in a way, I had to have that broken experience. I had to have that emptiness in the jar to go get baptized again and go pursue him and go to seminary and be active in the church, and then have him say, okay, we're equipped. You're inside a church is not where I want you. Hiding behind a fortress is not where I need you in defense. I need you out there in the world in the offense. I need you to be a warrior. And that's what it is as an entrepreneur. Whether we realize it or not, we have the chance to have impact, influence greater than any other human in any other way that we look at vendors, customers, clients, our communities, whatever. We get to be a model of Christianity because it is attraction over promotion, or being a good human ultimately is what we're aiming for. And I'll leave it at that. That just instills good things into your community, good things into your businesses, good things into the people that are around you. And it's also the knowledge that we talked about with Peter at the beginning, which is protecting yourself from the things that aren't spiritually aligning to you. It's one thing to do business with a business that does things and does the right thing. It's another thing to do business with a business that has a division that does the right thing, but the majority of the business does the wrong thing. Those are two very different things. And we need to stop pretending that doing business with a division that does the right thing is us still making a decision to do the right thing with our money. It is not even close. We are still supporting a giant that's putting most of their money in the things that are higher profitability, which is the things that are really, really bad for us, our planet, our animals, our future, period. There's no argument against it. There's no science that you're going to come up with that's going to suddenly say corn syrup is good for you. So, that's what we're talking about here. We get to make very small decisions that stack up into greater, gooder things, better things. I said gooder, but I don't know how else to say it. Greater things. They are gooder, they are better. But yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think anyone who's on the verge of trying to figure that out, I don't realize. I think what would happen is once they do decide to take that step, that leap of faith, and use God in the workplace and kind of push, beautiful things, push love, push. I think there's a negative connotation when they say don't push religion on me. I'm really not. I'm pushing love, And then if you look at the Bible, God is love. God is love. He doesn't define it as kind of this way or kind of that way. He's very clear. The messaging is very clear. God is love. It's an equivalent. So we are just pushing love, and then we're defining love from the biblical perspective, not the human perspective. Biblical perspective is unconditional. Human perspective, love is, I'm going to treat you, and then it's not for everybody. I'm not saying this is on everyone, right? But sometimes we treat people as good as they treat us. Look at the divorce rate, and look at what's happened. We don't grow together. I get offended. I don't like you anymore. I'm getting a divorce because we've made it easy, right? Society has made things that were so precious and so protected, much easier now than it's ever been. And people know that there's a way out, even after, it's a sacrament, right? Even after the spiritual, you become one. And look, I'm a victim of it myself. I got divorced 15 years ago, Yep. And I'm going to tell you something. It's never left me alone. It is my biggest failure in life. It's impacted me till today. It hasn't gone away. They say because the fusion of two souls into one, it's a fusion, right? So that's what the church teaches. It's two bodies become one. It's a biblical verse. It tells you exactly what happens. Two become one. So when you separate from a divorce, it's like if you took a piece of meat, right, and you shoved your fingers right through it and you tore it apart. That's what divorce is like. It's not a thin slice of you take scissors and there's a beautiful fine line, which means parts. If you took a piece of meat and you ripped it, right, it's not like it has jagged edges. There are pieces sticking out from one side. This part's this way, this part's that way, right? It's not clean, right? Because you tore it with your bare hands. Well, they say that's what divorce is like. So, which means part of you is still in the other person, and the other person is still in you no matter what. No matter what, it never leaves you because you were one. This is not a nice sliced, take scissors to make a nice fine line where everyone has their pieces and you forget about the other person. It doesn't work that way, and so it's something that I deal with on a daily basis. I'm with somebody that I absolutely love today, but you know what? They know that I have love for my ex-wife, and it's a different type of love. I care, and I want to make sure she's well. She's also the mother of my kids. So even if that didn't happen, I would still care, because that's what God has asked us to do. And it's one of those things that it's a cloud over my head that I don't know how I'm going to be judged. It makes me nervous, on that final day.
It makes me very nervous too.
Yeah.
Particularly how I handled all of it in general, and being young and dumb and making some bad decisions there, not being well equipped for what I was going through, honestly, and not seeking the right support systems or right mentors during the time, the right spirituality, a lot of things. There were a lot of things there that I didn't do very well, but I'm right there with you on that one. So
I constantly ask for, I ask God to forgive me every day, every morning. And it's not just on that. I mean, it's on a lot of things, but that's one of those things that's in the back of my head. And I ask him to forgive me every single day. And one of the questions that I always ask myself is, God, how have I done? How do you feel? Like, that's my concern, is like, when you wake up, it's like, what kind of relationship do I have with God? Like, did I do okay? Am I doing okay? Like, am I representing you the right way? What can I be different? Like, and those are the things that, questions that I ask myself on a regular basis, because I know that conversation is going to come very soon, and and then I'm going to be judged on it. And that's why I'm doing everything in my power to live the right way, and, and minimize my stupidity. I mean? That's what I try to do now, minimize my stupidity.
Yeah, same. And if you ask yourself the questions a lot and you keep dealing with things, eventually you keep getting to the same thing you don't deal with. That's one of the things I've noticed. And that's a monster that grows. Wow. And at some point you need to find a way to go deal with it. Or otherwise it will tear you down. It will bring you darkness. It will ruin a marriage, ruin a relationship, ruin businesses, and that's, for me, it is like that. I think, we have a chance to do better in this world, and sometimes we make decisions or we do things that don't do that. But also I think that God puts us on a path to redeem ourselves, to find him, to walk with him when we've made those bad decisions. I don't think it was his intent for us to take the path necessarily that we're on. I think it's a pivot in some ways also, because, or maybe he knew all along we were going to do it and this is the path. There's that theory also, which I think if he's all knowing and time doesn't exist to him, that's more of the true theology there, is he already knew and he's already prepared us to choose redemption if our will does choose it, where in Peter's case, I think that's what you're choosing, your redemption, your ability to redeem yourself. We all do it. I did the same thing. Like, there were years of my life where I wouldn't even talk about my spirituality, or my first marriage, she was Muslim or is Muslim, so there was that weird thing that I was wrestling with as a spiritual thing. And how do I handle this, and kids, and it's a whole other thing. But I respect her greatly. I think that, to your point, is that there's an understanding there and a ripping of the meat that no matter how much time goes by, there's always a weird connection there that is on a spiritual level that's hard to explain, and it's not having kids, because I don't have any with her.
Right. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that was a different, that was the before this, that was my first error. There was the second error, and now I'm on the third one. I can be stubborn. I can choose not to learn. And I think the previous me pursued things very quickly and very intentionally, and with not a fear of making mistakes and ability to learn from them. I didn't treat my relationships or my getting into relationships the same way I did my businesses, with the same caution and thought process, and allowing God to work in them in the same way. I didn't let God into my relationships. I will definitely say that. It's a triangle deal. God, no matter whether it's a friendship or a marriage or kids or whoever, it's always got to be a triangle deal. period. God's always got to be in that deal. At least for me, if it's not for the other person, it doesn't matter. I know he's there. It's a triangle deal. So.
And I'm going to say something interesting. What a great industry to be in. To be in hospitality is to really, and to have God as your backbone. You almost need it, because we're always wrong, no matter what. I saw a funny clip just the other day about a guy who walked over and ordered like a coffee, a latte, right? He ordered a latte, and it was just, he got the latte, and then he drank it, and he goes, no, I wanted soy milk, on my latte. And he goes, can I get it? Can I just, get it? He goes, sure. And so the guy goes up to the register. He goes, that'll be $4.95. He goes, but why don't you just swap out the soy milk? He goes, because it's a latte. I can't just extract the milk from it. It's what you ordered. He goes, but the guest is always right. He goes, that's true. But in this case, you admitted that you were wrong. So why would I have to pay for your mistake? It was just one of those funny things. He goes, if you want me to get you a soy milk latte, I'm happy to order for you, but you got to pay for it, And of course, we don't do that in the industry. It was just one of those funny clips that kind of highlighting how the guests aren't always correct, and they expect us to pay for their mistakes no matter what. And so there's not really another industry, I would say, that takes it on the chin like we do. You know what I mean? And so, if anything, you definitely need God interjected into this, because sometimes it can take we've had people who've eaten all their meal and they just said they weren't happy, so what do we do? You know what I mean? We got to figure something out, because we need to make them happy. How many times have you gone to Toys R Us and maybe the kid didn't expect, to like their toy as much, and it just sits there. You open it up, it's yours. You know what I mean? You can't just go back and return it, So it's one of those things where it's just a very different industry, and I don't know how you survive this industry without God, to be honest with you.
I think the hotel, hospitality, restaurants, the things that you go through to deal with customers and the happiness. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson, for writing Pursuit of Happiness into our Constitution, because it is a staple of standard in the United States as well as other Western countries now, because democracy's become a definition of happiness. But I will say this, it does make your businesses better. It does humble you in a way that I can't even explain. And if you're around long enough, you start to realize it's less about you and more about them. And if you can create a comfortable, safe environment for them to deal with whatever's going on in that moment, they'll be a loyal customer for life. So, a free meal versus the next 29 meals that they're going to buy there because you gave away one free. Like, that's the things we need to think about, honestly. Or the word of mouth, once you made it right, that word of mouth is priceless. You can't
100%.
pay for it. You cannot pay for word of mouth. I know everyone thinks you pay the influencers and Instagram and everything. Get it, pay dollar, but bang for your buck, flip around a bad situation. It's going to give you the most views, the most voice, the most experience, because a person whose opinion you change can't stop talking about it.
I think,
nature.
Justin, I think it's funny you mentioned that. I think I read somewhere where, a bad review can cost you up to like between $3,000 to $15,000 a year, just from people reading it and not wanting to go there. There's a percentage you're saying that actually get impacted by it. That's just reading it. Now imagine you experience it. You go home and you're there, on with your friends on a weekend, and say, hey, what'd you do this week? Yeah, we went to Spain for dinner. Cool. How was that? Overhyped. Not what it was. Service was terrible. Food wasn't good. All this stuff that they wrote, none of it's real. View was nice though, And so, for a person who heard that from a friend who'd never been there, they actually can be pretty impacted. And then if somebody else is around them, and this is a local small town, right, says and shares the same feedback to someone else who hasn't been there, well, guess what? Now it's a trickle effect that goes, to a lot of different people. And so they're saying that the cost for bad reviews could be anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000 a year, in terms of reviews. So this is some things that, something just to kind of know and to share.
Well, and I think that we have to realize and I don't think we emphasize this enough with the employees, is that reviews are revenue, and reviews are our ability to survive. And so that review, even if it's word of mouth, that is more important than the what's going on right now in this instant. Speaking of dot versus line on the chalkboard, like if I handle this dot wrong, that line's going to be a zigzagged mess for me in the future from that customer. They're going to create a zigzag mess for my future. But if I handle it properly, they're going to create a line that is consistently increasing my business. And so it's the same thing. How we handle it now determines where that dot goes in the line that it draws. So,
right. That's right.
So, Peter, where can they find you guys online? Where can they find your new restaurants? I'm going to have you back on because we didn't even get through half of the stuff about the new restaurants and new businesses and stuff. So I'll reach out to you. We'll do another one. We dove deep in the spirituality. We still have more to talk about there. I feel like in integrating it into your business to help those that want to do that. I think you're going to be a significant leader in this industry and on how to properly do that in our businesses. Because I think any entrepreneur out there suffers in how to truly bring the spirituality into our businesses. And I think we try to layer it in gently versus just calling a pig and not putting lipstick on it. This is what I am. This is who I am. This is the foundation of it. God first, family second. This business comes third. That's the way it rolls, guys. Should roll for you the same way. That type of thing. I want to talk more about that because I think it's important. And it doesn't mean the business suffers. What it means is that while we're running the business, if God and family are aligned in that business, all three can actually be at the same level, not on a hierarchy, even though God's always on top. I don't know if that made sense to everyone, but think about it. So anyway, where can they find you online?
Sure. So currently online, if you go to, we have a website, so Spain Wine Bar, SPAIN, Winebar, WINEBAR.com, SpainWineBar.com. We have social media both on Instagram, on Facebook, and we have our website, of course. If you have any inquiries, we do have a page in there for information. Feel free to send us any messaging there, or you can DM us through social media. Sand and Cedar Taverna we did build, the Instagram account is open. You may see, I think, one picture on there. So we're kind of keeping that subtle. Anybody who wants to visit, we'll have a family and friends, and of course, a launch soon. So you're more than welcome to follow us there as well, too. We don't have a website. We do, but it's not built yet for you to access Sand and Cedar Taverna. The Bistro and Lounge has also been created on Instagram. Again, you're more than welcome to proactively follow us there. Again, that's a July launch. But either way, we're going to cross-promote the launches through Spain Wine Bar. So if you follow us there, you'll be able to see what's going on there, the food, the vibe, the people, and the beverage program there that we have. So that's the best way to do it. And of course, you can always follow me on LinkedIn, Peter Elias. And I guess if you find me, you'll see Spain Wine Bar, probably owner of Spain Wine Bar, and then that'll be me.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, for coming on the show. Thank you for being so real and sharing what you shared. I think it is important that we all step up and let the world know that where we got and how we got here came with a lot of discipline and obedience and giving. It's not what everyone thinks it is. It comes with washing a lot of feet to be biblical. So,
well, I love that you said that. Thank you for having me, Justin. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for having this platform to be able to, have these conversations and hopefully impact people who are on the verge of trying to change and be different, or maybe overcome certain obstacles. And, I pray for all of you to kind of get there and, take your time with everything and, let the failures happen, embrace them, understand why they happened, and try to continue to grow and teach yourself and educate yourself on how to become better, and just continue to pray and let God lead your life. So thank you for everything that you do. Appreciate you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you too and what you're doing in the world and the audience. I hope everyone hears what's going on here. Share this episode, like it, subscribe, pass on, like Peter's restaurants. Go to Ocean City, do a food tour there. He's giving you 4 restaurants that you could do a food tour just on his alone. It's worth going to. It's worth visiting. And I encourage anyone listening in, the guests that you're hearing, support the businesses, see what their models look like. Most of them, if not all of them, I promise you, are humble and invest enough and at base enough with their customer base. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to them, to interact with you and have conversations with you. And as entrepreneurs, any of them would be willing to invest in you. I would say a majority anyway, just because majority of the people that are attracted to the show, that are attracted to what we do and the energy we put out, is giving produces way more abundance than taking from the world. And it's very basic at its basicness when I say that, but that's the heart of it. And like I said, things become a lot easier when you sort of filter everything in life through number one, for, what are those spiritual guidelines, truly those core values that I'm living up to, and who am I answering to? Am I answering to me? Because that's like me trying to write myself a speeding ticket. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to keep doing 85 no matter what. I'll probably do 95 if I know there's no police. Who's going to enforce 65? Right. So it's just something to think about for everyone, and why it matters. And when we open up our lives to that and fill our jar in that way, the Holy Spirit inside of us, and allowing it to guide us and be a part of us in our decision making, it does get better, and our businesses do thrive, and the lives of those that we touch gets better, or as I said earlier, gooder. So I spent a lot of time in Georgia, guys, so sorry about that. All right, audience, I love you guys. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter. We're out.